Say that again. The meeting is now called to order. Today is Monday, October the 4th, 2021. Today you have joined the Providence Housing Crisis Task Force. This is our very first meeting today. Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Deputy Majority Leader Mary Kay Harris.
Present.
Councilwoman Joanne Ryan.
Present.
Council President Pro Tempore Espino.
Present.
Emily Friedman.
Present.
Brenda Clement. Absent. 4 present, 1 absent.
At this time, we're going to go right into the organizational meeting, and we're going to call for nomination of the chair. At this time, I would like to put forth as chair nominated Joanne Ryan, Councilwoman Ryan.
I would second that nomination.
The nomination has been seconded. Is there another nomination? Is there another nomination? Is there another nomination before this board? With that being said, we're called to vote for Joanne Ryan, our new chairperson.
Thank you very much, Councilwoman.
Thank you.
Okay, next order. First, let the record reflect that we have Brenda Clement is with us today.
Apologies for being late, Madam Chair.
None at all. Thank you very much to the committee for having confidence in me to lead this very important group. At this point, I'd like to ask for an election, nominations for an election of a vice chair. May I have a nomination for a vice chair?
I would like to nominate Councilwoman Leader Mary Kay Harris to be the vice chair.
Councilman Espino nominates Deputy Majority Leader Harris. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Emily Friedman. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? I should, before we vote, ratchet that back. Any other nominations? Any other nominations? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. We have a chair and a vice chair of this very important committee. Madam Clerk, please read item 2 into the record.
Discussion to consider future topics for Housing Crisis Task Force meeting.
Great. Okay, with that, first I'd like to welcome everyone who is with us today, as well as those who are on Zoom, chose to join us on Zoom. We're thrilled to be able to pull this group together. We recognize it was a bit of short notice. However, we hope that we can put together a plan of how we're going to meet, when we're going to meet, and what our deliverables will be so that we can be as efficient as possible. With that, I'd like to ask Councilwoman Harris if she could provide some background as to why we're here and why it's so important. I know this topic is very important to you. I tell this story many times. When I first met Councilwoman Harris, she told me about her passion for affordable housing. And I pledged as a young councilwoman, which I'm not as young anymore, but that I would assist her in any way I can. So with that, please tell us why you pushed for this task force and why it's important to you in the city of Providence.
Yes, I have an open statement that I would like to read. That way I can stay on course if you guys don't mind. As many of you know, and you know, as Councilwoman Ryan has already said, from very long time ago, well, for us it's a long time ago, we started to really realize that the city itself needed to entertain a legislation around housing. And we ourselves as council people came together and agreed that that was something we needed to do. We also were very active in understanding what the city planning committee did around the comprehensive housing plan, which was also revised during that period of time of pushing for us to understand this. For me, yes, it is. The housing, especially affordable housing, is a priority. Not only do I think of affordable housing when I think of affordable housing, I also think of low income, because there's many people who have been marginalized and has been really not having the privilege of having an opportunity to be housed for one reason or the other. When the pandemic began in 2020, this long, hard-fought battle became even more critical than ever. As city leaders, we must take rapid and focused action to alleviate the growing crisis in housing and homelessness in Providence. Change does not happen overnight, we know that, but with persistence, I know we will make a difference. That's why it's important for us to come together tonight with all our experts that are involved in housing, whether they are advocates or whether they are people who are household providers or whether they are developers. It's really, really important that we try to understand the deep, in-depthness of where we are and why we're in these housing crises. The purpose of this task force is to bring together a team of experts, just like I said, so that we can better address affordable housing and homelessness within the city. I hope that by bringing together city and local leaders, like my colleague here who has always been very much by my side and have done all she can to try to help push through some of the areas of trying to understand where we as city leaders have a role and what we need to be doing as city leaders in that role to alleviate some of the housing issues to the best of our ability. We find that it's problematic, but we can come up with some sustainable solutions, I believe, in these important issues. While housing and homelessness are a crisis point in this city, there's still a reason to be hopeful. While housing and homelessness are here, and it is a part of a point of a subject right now, we also have opportunity. As you know, the Affordable Housing Trust Fund that Emily and so many of them of the planning committee have been a part of is something that the city has been very much positively engaged in as well. Now, the American Rescue Plan Act for 2021 is a great opportunity for us to find funding available and that might be meaningful investment for this crisis that we are facing. What I'm asking for this task force is a clear path forward and recommendations on how we can best deploy our assets to create immediate relief for those that are suffering. With the talents and expertise around this table, I firmly believe, and the people that have joined us by Zoom today, which will be at the table at one point or the other, I firmly believe that we have ability to make meaningful and lasting impacts on our residents and turn shovel-ready projects into affordable housing and homeless shelter throughout the city. And the reason we're concentrating in the area more so than permanent housing is because that's where we are right now. We are in a crisis right now, and people are in shelter where they are. And so, although we know that the best thing to do and the right thing to do is create permanent housing, it's most important for us right now to work on immediate housing, immediate needs and housing for people right now. With that being said, I'm going to just stop because I believe that we have enough opportunity to work not only with the city but with the state as well. And again, we have so many expertise that we will be able to drive something for. What we want to do at the end is be able to have some proposals beyond proposals is there, but proposals that we can use in the future for this particular reason, to make sure that we have no one left behind or no one unhoused. So thank you for listening to me. I hope I was clear enough that you understand. I know as we go along, the task force itself may shift, depends on what we may need as, to move us forward. But I believe we got the skills to do it. I really do. So thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Councilwoman.
I'd like to recognize Councilman Vargas, who is with us. Please let the record reflect that he has joined us. We have a number of folks here today, and I think that what I'd like to do is just start perhaps by talking about the resolution that was passed by the City Council.
Yeah.
So I'd like to enter the resolution, distribute that to everybody. This brought us to the table today, and before we talk about it, we'll just get it distributed.
Thank
I have
you.
one. Thank you.
Madam Chair, if I may, I wanted to excuse myself. I had
Okay.
something urgent that came up right now that I
That's
need to
fine.
attend to.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My apologies.
No worries.
Thank you.
But looking
Sure you'll be
forward,
back at
Yeah.
the table. Thank you.
Yeah,
looking
thank you.
forward to continue to do
Thank
some great work with you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, before we begin talking about this resolution, may I have, like to entertain a motion to enter this as Exhibit A to
So
this meeting? Motion made by Councilwoman Harris, seconded by? Seconded by Commissioner Clement and Emily Friedman. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. So the council submitted this resolution to basically pull all of you folks together on, we have a number of experts in the field, we have a number of state officials that are interested in figuring out what we could do. So this truly is a working committee. The council as a body, over the years that I have been on the council, we have worked diligently to pass legislation to promote affordable housing in many ways. One was the capitalization of a $25 million affordable housing bond. That was a council initiative, and that came basically from the community and our housing advocates, who basically identified a gap in financing to put transactions together. That was an important step. The Affordable Housing Trust Fund was created many years ago, but there was a lack of a steady funding stream for that. Capitalizing that fund was a really huge step. And moreover, the council took the initiative to legislatively mandate that any tax stabilization agreement that was provided in the city of Providence, 10% of that tax relief would be passed back on to affordable housing, to the Affordable Housing Trust. So there's a number of resources that we now have, and then compounding those dollars, those really precious dollars, is the opera funding. The council moved very quickly and passed funding for affordable housing and the immediate needs, opera funding. That was the most recent initiative legislatively. So we feel as though legislatively we've put laid the groundwork, established a skeleton, but what is missing now is we need you. We need advocates to come together. We need to recognize our immediate needs, recognize that there is funding. We're very unique. This is a first that we know of, municipal funding, a constant municipal funding stream in the shape of a bond for affordable housing issues, or to tackle affordable housing. So I think we're in a good spot in that vein. However, this task force was created basically to bring everybody together and get your ideas and just keep moving forward, but producing housing, protecting our housing, preserving our housing, but moreover, addressing our absolute immediate needs of folks that are homeless. We have the power, we have the tools, we want to fix it, and that's what this is all about. So with that, I'd like to recognize some folks that are with us that first at the table, we have the benefit of having Brenda Clement as a member of this commission. We are thrilled. I first met Brenda Clement many years ago, 23 years ago, when she introduced me. 23?
About that, I think, yes.
Maybe 25. She introduced me to the need for affordable housing. She inspired me years and years ago. I know it's a lifelong passion for Brenda. I share her passion, but she has literally been at the forefront, fighting and pushing for housing at all levels for everyone. So I want to say thank you for agreeing to be on this commission. I think it's really important to have you here. You bring a host of knowledge, and we're thrilled to have you with us. And then Emily Friedman has distinguished herself. She is our CDBG guru, and certainly is very adept at making sure we find funds and direct funds to the needs in our community. And she's very plugged into our community needs. So we really thank you. She represents the mayor's office. We thank you for joining us on this commission. Today at the table we have with us Keith Hoffman, who's the Special Assistant Attorney General. He's the AG's designee. So I want to thank you very much for joining us, and I'm sure that you're going to have some great ideas. Out in the audience, excuse me, it's all about ordinances. Out in the audience, I see at the top of the list my good friend Carol Vinter, Executive Director of Rhode Island Housing. Thank you very much, Carol, for joining us. I see Eileen Hayes, Amos House. Thank you very much, Eileen. I also see we have Councilwoman Helen Anthony is with us. Please let the record reflect her attendance. I see Jennifer Hawkins from One Neighborhood Builders, who's done so much in this topic, in this arena. I see Karen Santilli from Crossroads, Rhode Island, being represented. I see Leanne Burns from the General Treasurer's Office. About all my eyes can see. Mark Kravitz.
House of Hope.
House of Hope. I already said that, didn't I? Laura Jaworski, I'm sorry. Laura Jaworski is here.
Alexandra Gonzalez from...
Okay, I'm having trouble. Alexandra Gonzalez is also with us. So thank you very much. This is a little tough on Zoom. But I think the important thing is that the resolution identifies a number of people that are at the table. Councilman Espinal had to leave us, but there is a number of ex officios, and the intent was to bring everybody to the table.
Right.
We've got the ex officio Director of Planning and Development, Chief of Police, the Fire Chief, State Fire Marshal, Director of Department of Inspections and Standards, representative from the Department of Health, the AG's office, and we've already introduced our friend at the table, Keith, representative from the Speaker's office, individual who has experienced homelessness, representative from Rhode Island Housing. Thank you, Carol, for joining us. Representative from Rhode Island Housing Authority, representative of each of the community-based organizations have been selected. So that's the cast. I've said a lot, and I don't want this to be about me speaking. I want it to be about us. So I think we've already heard from Councilwoman Harris, and again, this is really about kicking us off tonight, setting a meeting time, a meeting agenda, and really having deliverables for the next meeting. So with that, Brenda, can you share with us your thoughts on why this is important and what we can accomplish by working together collaboratively?
Thank you again for the opportunity to come and for your kind words as well, and I'm pleased to be here. This is not the first time we've been here at this table, and I keep joking to people about my housing work that I'm going to continue to do it until I get it right. And we clearly do not have it right yet, because there are too many people who are not secure in their home. Our annual fact book, which will be released soon, shows, for many, many years, we've had high numbers of cost-burdened individuals, people who are spending more than a third of their income towards housing. Over a third of Rhode Islanders fall into that category. We have both a quantity and a quality problem in housing here in our state and in the city of Providence. We simply do not have enough units, particularly at the lower income level, and we also have a very old and aging housing stock. So the quality of that housing stock is an ongoing challenge and issue for people to be safe in their home, but also to age safely in their home and their community. So I agree with you that the focus of our work over the next certainly couple of weeks should be immediate crisis mode. We're in a crisis. Winter is approaching very quickly, and we have far too many people out in encampments, out in hotel vouchers that are due to expire, or they're being displaced. Again, not a new problem, but something that we've got to address immediately. And so with that in mind, I think we need to do a couple of things and a little bit of homework before we meet again. The long-term goal is definitely, and whatever we do, I want us to always keep in mind that we should move from a shelter-based system to a housing-based system. That's the end goal. That's what we should be investing the prime amount of our federal dollars and city dollars in. But in the meantime, I think we've got to update the survey of vacant buildings in the city. What is currently out there that we may be able to buy, purchase, obtain? Every time I talk about this issue, I keep thinking about the scene from The Fugitive, where Tommy Lee Jones is searching for the fugitive and goes, I want a hard-coded search for every farmhouse, hen house, whatever it is that we can use or convert to housing. And I don't mean to make light of a serious situation. We've got to be creative. We've got to look at vacant storefront spaces. We've got to look at, is there any school buildings that are being underutilized? Is there any vacant buildings in the city on tax rolls that we can kind of reclaim and repurpose as well too? And so I think we've got to think differently. Thankfully, because of the federal dollars, we do have the opportunity to potentially get more. I know a while back, we were trying to purchase some dorm space from Johnson & Wales with some of the early pots of federal money, and that federal pot wouldn't work, but, can we revisit that, or are there other opportunities in that space that we can look at again too? So vacant buildings, school buildings, whether it's the colleges and universities that may be able to partner up with us. I also think, again, not a short-term use, but a longer-term thing is to look at programs like Nesterly in Boston area, which is a shared home program that is particularly targeted to students and seniors, but we have a lot of seniors with vacant bedrooms and space in their homes. And is there opportunity there that we could potentially create some partnerships with as well too? I don't think that's an immediate short-term issue, but it is something to kind of keep in our radar as well too. And then finally, I started in this work many, many years ago from my own church in Pawtucket. And so I always go back to my roots and my faith and say, let's survey some churches and faith-based institutions. Is there some space that could be repurposed and reused? Is there some opportunities for us to use old parsonages for housing like we do with my church in Pawtucket? So I think we've got to, again, be creative. I think we've got to look at not only vacant housing buildings, but also vacant buildings in general in the city. And are there things that we can repurpose and reuse either temporarily and or create for permanent housing? So I think, updating status on all of those things, and I apologize to my colleague Emily to the left, because a lot of that information sits at planning, but also code enforcement and other places that it would be great to get that updated information, and then let's start to acquire some buildings, or rent, long-term lease some spaces so that we can get people off the street.
Great, that brings us. Thank you very much, Brenda. Thank you for your remarks, and thank you for your hard work all these years. I've witnessed it, I've seen it, you're unbelievable, and every time we go to a affordable housing event together, we say we're still doing it. We're still asking for the same things over and over again. So it isn't a secret, it's not, there's no secret sauce. We should be able to resolve or just solve this. Emily, she walked right into you. So Emily, share with us, please, what your thoughts are, and perhaps even elaborate on, I'd be interested in knowing what planning department has relative to an update on all those vacant buildings. Or any buildings.
Absolutely, and thank you for the opportunity to participate on behalf of the mayor and on behalf of the planning department. I would agree with Brenda's sentiments that while our recently completed comprehensive housing strategy found that we need more housing across all levels, I concur that we need to focus on the crisis moment at hand and focus our discussions around our most vulnerable and our unhoused. By a most recent report we have in the state of Rhode Island, in excess of 500 people who are on a wait list for a shelter bed on any given night. To further emphasize the crisis at hand, our comprehensive housing strategy found that by 2030, we are going to have a shortage of over 8,000 units that are priced appropriately for those earning 30% of area median income or below. So we have a crisis level shortage of housing at the lowest level of income or no income. I think what's a unique opportunity, as Brenda and others have mentioned, is the American Rescue Plan dollars and other dollars that we have flowing in to help us address this crisis. But what we hear continually from providers and from others is that we need to translate those dollars into space, and we need to do it yesterday. And so that's something that's been consuming quite a lot of our time, both us and the many experts we've impaneled, looking for opportunities for shelters and for housing to try to get those things online as soon as possible. The planning department's happy to update and help with the information that we have, as I'm sure others are, to identify potential spaces. I think we all need to put our heads together to come up with some creative ideas that lend themselves to this immediate need.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. You mentioned the comprehensive housing strategy. Is that something that you can get out to Sally, who can distribute it to all of the members of this committee?
Absolutely.
I think that's important. And also, Brenda, the fact book might be helpful too.
Yep, our 2021 fact book is coming out in a very short period of time, October 15th. So are happy to send you the link to the current book, but new data is coming out very shortly.
Okay. Do we have anything on the table that we can do right now to help the folks that are who are homeless tonight, who are out, not in a shelter? What's going on? I know you've been literally on the street, and you've been reporting back to a number of folks. But I don't want this meeting to conclude without trying to advance this target. So what's going on? We have people sleeping on streets. What are we doing?
Well, we've got some of the prime experts. One of the other names that I think you missed in the first round was Colleen Daly with Project Weather Renew, as well as Eileen. We've got Karen and Laura, all of whom work directly with individuals. So I'm not sure if they can they only listen in or can they speak?
So who is out there that
Councilwoman, I can say in my ward, I have been working with a young organization called Gather Together, United as One. And the reason I have been working with them because the people that's at Wilson Street have a different type of need other than just the house. They have a variety of needs. And so as individuals decide that they want to go into detox centers or whatever, they have approached her as the person, a trusted person, to say, look, this is where I need to go. And at one point, there may be a fee or cost. So we've been working with the city from the dollars that we pass to try to make sure that we put aside the immediate need of opera dollars to put aside a certain amount of funding. So if that pops up, if we get a hotel or somebody decide right now that they need to move out of the condition they're in, we're able to, go through whoever these small organizations was, probably Weber or Gather United as One. Because you're right, they have been out there, Brenda, in the mix and with the people, doing cleanup, constantly meeting with the people. So yes, I mean, that's been my experience. I spent, like I said, my holiday just trying to figure out exactly
what do you need?
Well, we need to keep pushing for those dollars to really, those emergency dollars to really go towards the folks.
So Emily, we're all...
Hannah has an update, of how many vouchers do you have, how many people on wait list? I know Emily talked about some state numbers, but I don't know if you have the Providence specific numbers that we can look at. You may not have them with you right this second.
To an extent, I have them. We, just to take a broad level, via the coordinated entry system, and homeless management information system. Data is captured on folks who have a contact point with our homeless provider system. And so we use that data to inform decision-making, investment strategy. And so on any given night or at any moment in time, we know how many folks are trying to access our system or are waiting for placements. Across the state of Rhode Island, that number is in excess of 1,200 people on any given night. Of the 500 plus people I referenced earlier, over 40% of those are within the city of Providence, so they are our constituents, Providence residents who are seeking placements. I should take a step back and mention that the reason there are so many folks unsheltered at this moment is that all of our shelter opportunities are at 100% or greater capacity at the moment. We have fully deployed, to the extent we can, every overflow bed, every shelter facility, and so we have hundreds of people in excess of the capacity to house them at the moment. We, at the city and at the state, have made significant investments through the relief dollars we've received thus far to fund vouchers, rapid rehousing, those overflow shelters that I mentioned, but the response to date has not been enough. And so we need to continue to have conversations as we look at those ARPA dollars about immediate response, because the rate of growing homelessness is just not keeping pace with the level of investments we've made thus far or the spaces that we have in which to place people.
So I'm confused. So you basically said you've invested some dollars in shelters and vouchers. So how many vouchers have you invested in? How many new vouchers are on the street right now since we passed the immediate need offer?
So this is investments prior to that ARPA allocation.
So
that $500,000 has not been contracted yet.
Okay. What's the barrier? How long is it going to take to move that along?
I believe there are proposals being contemplated right now.
Okay. All right. Okay. So that helps.
Madam Chair,
Councilwoman
Emily did bring up something that has been a bit confusing for me, so I think in the next meeting, I would like for our experts to be able to explain that coordinated entry system. Simply because I feel like not everybody fits in that coordinated entry system, simply because I think there is some type of criteria or something you have to meet, or some kind of special need that you may have that gets you to that coordinated entry system. So I would like to know more about that, so if folks could bring that, what that feels like. I don't know whether the rest of you feel that way, but what that feels like to have, that opportunity to learn.
We can put you in contact with colleagues at the Coalition for Homeless and others who.
Okay.
Who
Yeah, they are part of the committee, so they've been invited in as a part of the committee, so I think, the committee will be open up more. We'll have more people here to sort of direct our discussion. I would like very much to understand that better, since Emily did bring it up.
Okay, so why don't we do this? When are we meeting next? What's the meeting schedule that works for this commission?
And Brenda, you seem to be very, very busy.
Well, as is everyone at this table, I'm sure. So, is there a preference for the council as to nights? I don't know what your other meetings
So
schedules
finance
are.
for me is Tuesday, Thursday nights, pretty much.
Okay.
So this week I've got Wednesday. Monday and Wednesdays are pretty much good for me.
Okay.
So if that works for this committee, and then we need to talk about time and when we want to meet next.
So what day are you proposing, on Monday?
I'm proposing, if we're prepared to meet this week again,
Okay.
Wednesday.
Wednesday, okay.
I don't know if that's too soon, or next Monday. What are we thinking?
I would think next Monday, that'll give us a little bit more time for the clerks to get ready. And then we can do a little bit of what you were saying, Emily, try to figure out some of the vacancy, and then also what Brenda was talking about with, just being able to, check out some of the other services.
Okay.
Oh, we don't want to meet on a holiday.
No wonder why it was available.
Yeah.
All right, so how about, next Wednesday? What date is that? That's the 13th. Planning's doing something.
Yeah.
6 o'clock. We can meet at 5 o'clock.
Fine with me.
fine with efficient here? Everybody good with that?
Mm-hmm.
Does that sound good?
Okay.
Committee members?
October the 13th.
Council members? Okay, so let's do this. We're gonna meet next on the 13th. We're gonna hopefully get the comprehensive housing strategy to the commission members and published. Let's just post it, okay? We've got, has any work been done on updating, what Brenda had talked about, a survey of vacant cities and buildings in the city of Providence? I can't believe we don't have that list. What do we have in planning?
Sure. So we maintain what's referred to as the every home list, so the list of vacant and abandoned residential properties. I don't know that that list necessarily lends itself to this discussion, because those are properties that we would need to use tools to acquire. Typically, they're vacant and abandoned because they have very complicated title issues. And I would say there's about 200 single to multifamily properties on that list. I think that's helpful for a longer-term conversation around affordable housing production, but that doesn't necessarily lend itself to the shelter conversation.
So we have an immediate need that we're talking about, and we've said that that's a priority for us. So let's focus on pulling together as quickly as we can any vacant buildings, reaching out to the universities and the colleges, talk to the school systems, see what buildings are available.
Mm-hmm.
All right, but I guess, you know, I'm always, how deep is the pool? I guess what we really need for next meeting is you, Emily, if you can help us by working with some of the housing providers, to know what the immediate need is. You know, how much shelter space, how many vouchers? Let's try to bring numbers to the table.
Sure.
So that we can quantify the problem and then figure out how we can help.
Yeah.
I know that you're working on agreements for opera spending, but in order to make sure that we're spending as efficiently and as effectively as possible, we kind of want to know how many people we're talking about, what we're talking about, or what we're trying to fix. So if you can help us with that, that would be great. And I would encourage anyone on the Zoom tonight, if you're pointing at something, Madam Clerk?
Stand up.
Oh, okay, great. So let me just finish my sentence and then I'll reach out. I would encourage anyone who has input as far as helping us to quantify this problem, to reach out to Eileen, myself, or any commission member to try to help us figure it out. Eileen Hayes, you have your hand up. Would you like to contribute something this evening?
Yes, can you hear me?
You can, loud and clear.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, everybody. I've been texting back and forth with my colleagues, Karen Santilli and Laura Jaworski, while we're listening to the call. Would it be helpful if we prepared a sort of a slideshow with all the data you're looking for the next meeting?
Absolutely.
We know that right now there's about 80 people that have vouchers that are looking for units and can't find them. Amos House is operating a landlord incentive program where we're giving landlords $2,000 if they're willing to give us a unit. We're struggling to find units. We've got 30 so far from May 1st. So there are lots of things that we do think would be important for all of you to understand, and we're happy to prepare kind of a slide deck for the meeting that may be able to address some of the issues that you're talking about or asking for information on. If you'd like us to do that, just let us know.
Eileen, thank you. That's an excellent suggestion. We love it. Can you send it to the clerks? Who do we send it to? Madam Clerk, where do we get it to?
Sean Selleck.
Sean Selleck?
Sure. Mm-hmm.
And if you wouldn't mind, send it to Sally, who's our policy person, who's working every day on this topic. That would be very helpful. Eileen, do you know Sally?
Hi, Sally.
Have you met?
We have not met.
I was brand new, yeah, we got
Sally,
brand new
please
Sally.
introduce yourself and share your contact information.
Hello everyone, my name is Sally. I work for the City Council as a policy analyst and research coordinator.
Very good.
Great,
Very
nice to meet
good. All right, so Sally is helping us in a number of fronts, but most importantly, keeping everybody connected and distributing information as efficiently as possible. Madam Clerk, do we have something else there? Eileen, are you good with that? Do you have any other great
No,
thoughts? 'Cause
That's great.
that was very helpful, and that's
Very
exactly
helpful.
what we're looking for.
Absolutely.
We have Carol.
Carol Vinter, Executive Director of Rhode Island Housing.
She put her hand down.
You put your hand down, Carol. Are you still there, Carol, and you'd like to chat? We have Keith from the AG's office Keith Hoffman.
Yeah, thank you so much, and thank you for including the Attorney General's office on this incredibly important task force. One of the questions I had, kind of to respond to some of Brenda's points, so the two big issues that we're dealing with are quantity and quality, right? It seems as though housing security and then not facing eviction would fall in the quantity category. As I'm sure everybody is aware, we're facing this potential tidal wave of evictions, and some advocates have spoken to us about one possible intervention. There are obviously many possible interventions from an eviction moratorium, also a pre-filing eviction diversion court that would require landlords and tenants to mediate a dispute before filing a notice of eviction. That would basically allow federal relief funds to connect with landlords before any court case is filed, which would, beyond potentially preserving the tenant's housing, also prevent the court record from being created that could make it more difficult for the tenant to get housing in the future. So I wonder if that would fall within the purview of the task force. And then the second issue on quality, I work in the office of the right advocate, the AG's office, and also in the office of the lead advocate. And I think all know that lead poisoning is still a serious issue that impacts our community. October 24th is the beginning of National Lead Poisoning Prevention Week. And I wonder if housing quality issues, including lead poisoning, would be within the purview of the task force.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay.
And if you want to prepare a presentation or package something for us so that we can all look at it together, that would be wonderful.
Sure, absolutely.
Okay, can I just add, and
Yes.
thank you for raising the issues of eviction. It's something that a number of groups are working on. Rhode Island Housing is administering the rent relief program, and our partners at the Center for Justice and Rhode Island Legal Services and the Law School at Roger Williams University have been working on staffing a help desk at District Court every day. That court is in session to again try to link people to some of the other things that Keith's talking about would be important actions for City Council to take, particularly the required mediation. I will tell you that there will be lots of pushback and discussion on that, but that may, or at least a short-term requirement, even if we can't make it a permanent thing, and while we get through the worst of this crisis, might be something to consider as well. We are still finding landlords reluctant to participate in the rent relief program, so that's something to think about as we.
Why are landlords still resisting participation in the program?
A number of reasons. That they just are concerned about what that means in terms of what the government may do or say or if they have to meet. I mean, you have to meet minimum quality standards anyway under current state and city law, but just a general reluctance. Right now, it's a very tight market and a very low vacancy rate, and you can get a lot more money for your units than you can currently get with that an existing tenant may pay. So there are legitimate issues too with many landlords. People are selling their property or they're retiring or, and they're having to dislocate tenants as part of that. So I do not want this to be a landlord-tenant versus thing. It is an us problem. And so trying to figure out how we collectively work on these issues. How do we address the landlord concerns? How do we address the tenant's concerns? But Keith is absolutely right. We think we've got a big problem now. It could get a whole lot bigger very quickly if we see wide-scale eviction.
Well said.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else out in the audience, our Zoom people, like to share, contribute, make suggestions for what they'd like to see as far as information or discussion for next meeting? Anybody? Anybody in commission? Any deliverables you'd like to see?
There's one more thing that.
Councilwoman Harris. That's okay.
One more thing that, Sally and those who are working on was a guest list of people who were not a part of this meeting. Someone from the Rhode Island Domestic Violence will be speaking sooner or later, and someone from United Way, Chris Brown. So each time we'll have a set off with somebody getting us energized from a conversation. Chris Brown, you all guys all know her. And she has agreed to just kick us off in a conversation to get us started around some things to start to think about. And again, someone from the Domestic Violence Coalition, who have expanded to young women, there's other things they're doing as well.
So I just spoke with, thank you, Councilwoman, I just spoke with Sally, and she has been reaching out to people to broaden this group, to make sure we touch upon everybody and bring all the resources to the table. So that is happening, and if you see someone who's not here and you'd like to encourage their participation, please reach out to me. I'll make sure we do that. If there's content that you'd like to see, please reach out to me and I'll get it on the agenda. With that, I don't think we have anything left to discuss other than I'm really excited about pulling everyone together, and I really appreciate your time. You're all tremendously talented people who have devoted their lives to this work, and we certainly want to make sure that we're all working as best we can together. So any thoughts are most welcome. Thank you all for your attendance, and I'm looking forward to the next meeting. Yes. With that, there's no further business on this agenda. I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved,
Motion made by Councilwoman Harris, seconded by Emily Friedman. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. We are adjourned.
Yeah.
Thank you all.
Thank you all for attending. This was great, people. You know.